I'm Jim Everett, one of the co-presidents at the College of Idaho, and along with Doug Brigham, who I think is up in the balcony there, wave to us, Doug, we are delighted to welcome you, along with all of our colleagues at the College of Idaho, to this important event on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. We are here united against hate. As Dr. King said, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. So I hope all of us are also here united in love. The journey has been a long one. From 1776 in our founding, when it was declared that we are all created equal with inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It would be 1863 when the Emancipation Proclamation was delivered. And we moved forward on that magnificent vision of this country. 1919, women first got the right to vote in a country where we're all given the rights and responsibilities of this country. 1963, I'm old enough to have remembered Martin Luther King, 1 century after the Emancipation Proclamation, delivering his I Have a Dream speech. The year later, civil rights legislation was passed. So it's been a long journey. The journey continues. As King also said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. So 60 years after King's speech, we are gathered here today as a part of moving that arc toward justice for all. And I thank everyone for being here. Before I get off stage and get emotional, I'm so grateful as I look out to see all of you here standing up, united against hate. Now, we're at a college, so one other thing we get to do is we get to give homework. So I'm going to give you one homework assignment, and I'll tell you, for once, I've already completed my homework assignment. I do it every year. I want you to go back, and it's easy to get now. Find Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech. August 28, 1963. The full speech is 17 minutes long. I'd encourage you to watch the whole thing. There's a shorter vision. And picture the world that he painted for us. That's the world I hope all of us want to live in. And that's what we're here to do today, to talk about that beautiful vision that started in 1776. Now it's my pleasure to introduce one of our amazing students. I'll tell you, one of the blessings of being in a place like this is it keeps you optimistic, it keeps you hopeful about the future, and it's our students that do that every single day. And I know Doug would say the same thing. There is not a day that we're not inspired by our students. And I'm going to bring up one that I'm just getting to know better over the last few weeks. She's an amazing student, Zoè Butler. She comes from Jamaica. She is a sophomore. She is a biomedical major, plans to be an MD, and I will say, not just plans to be, she will be an MD. She's just a great human being. She's also on the track and field team, so please welcome Zoè Butler.
I had a dream. Or am I still dreaming? I spoke, but am I being heard? We are speaking. Are you listening? Is it the past, present, or future? We are moving. We are moving, but sometimes it We must keep dreaming. We all must keep dreaming. With eyes wide open. That was Speaking into the Unknown by Zach. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me now in welcoming Mr. Josh Hurwitz, the United States Attorney of Idaho.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Josh Hurwitz. I have the privilege of being the United States Attorney for Idaho. I want to begin with heartfelt thanks for the College of Idaho, to the College of Idaho, for hosting us today. A lot of work went into putting this together, welcoming you all here. President Everett, thank you for your remarks. I know now why you went before Zoe and I'm going after Zoe. That was kind of a dirty trick, but Zoe, thank you so much. Let's have another round of applause for Zoe. I want to thank President Brigham, too, for your support for this event. LaTanya Caney-Heath has worked with me to figure out how we wanted to organize this and to put it all together, along with the events and the security staff at C of I. Our other co-sponsor, I'm really grateful to as well, the Wasserman Center, and Christina Bruce Benyon, the executive director, who will be moderating a panel later on this afternoon. I want to thank our law enforcement partners for being here, the security, campus security for College of Idaho, FBI, the Caldwell Police Department, the Canyon County Sheriff's Office, and also the Canyon County Prosecutor's Office, who you'll be hearing from later on. And of course, thank you all for coming. This is a day for action, a day to come together. There's many opportunities to do so in the Treasure Valley, and I am appreciative that you chose this opportunity today. Today, the other thing I wanted to mention before I sort of talk about the role that we have, because we have such a jam-packed schedule, we won't have an opportunity for a back and forth or questions and answers with the audience during the time we have allotted. However, myself and my office are available, and in your packets you have our numbers, and I encourage any member of the community to contact my office on this or any other topic of concern. As President Everett alluded to, today is a very special day for this event because it is the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King and the day that we celebrate his legacy. And it's a day that we renew our efforts to create the type of society that he saw as possible, even in the throes of the civil rights era. Dr. King wrote of the multiple roads, multiple lanes to justice. He explained that both law and education are necessary to achieve justice. And that's why I'm so grateful to partner with both the College of Idaho and the Wasserman Center. And in that spirit, let me sort of introduce to everybody the purposes of today's event from my office's perspective. In a moment, you will hear from one of my colleagues and an FBI agent about federal hate crimes legislation and statutes and the crimes that we prosecute. Later, you'll hear from our state counterpart in Canyon County about the Idaho law called malicious harassment. You know, throughout the event, and as is always present with us, you also hear about the First Amendment and how that protects everyone's beliefs and everyone's right to free expression, and how that guides the work that we do, and the differences between a hate crime, hate speech, and a hate incident, but why we want folks to reach out to us and report all of those incidents. I'm really excited that you'll also hear from community leaders about what they have experienced in their own lives, in their own businesses, and their own schools, and how they have addressed those challenges and been critical members of providing hope, even when things look dark. And in the end, I hope that we can all reflect, just as I think it's a great idea to watch or read Dr. King's famous speech or speeches. I hope that we all will take a chance to reflect internally about what we want for our community. For me, and I hope for you, that is a community that recognizes our differences, accepts our differences, but through openness, dialogue, and respect for one another, builds a stronger and peaceful community where everyone can enjoy our liberties and our freedoms without fear. The title of this initiative is United Against Hate, and let me explain what that means from our office's perspective. At the Department of Justice, and the United States Attorney's Office is, as I like to say, sort of the local branch of DOJ. At the Department of Justice, our mission is to enforce the rule of law. That includes a commitment to prosecuting acts of unlawful hate crimes. This is so important because under the Constitution, we are all equal. That's regardless of our race, nationality, gender, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability. And crimes that target individuals or groups based on those characteristics are repugnant to the rule of law. At the same time, we acknowledge that hate by itself is not illegal. As you will see from our presentations, we don't prosecute people for what they believe in. At my office, we have no favored or disfavored groups. We only have the law, under which we protect everyone's rights. What we prosecute are criminal acts like violence, threats of violence, and unlawful harassment. Having said that, we need to also recognize that acts of hate do not just happen. That type of violence usually is the endpoint and not the beginning. And from a societal perspective, the beginning of the path to violence occurs when people are unwilling to listen to each other, and when they start viewing their fellow citizens as others, and when they turn violent rhetoric into actual violence. So part of our goal today is to bring together a crowd of people, and I know for a fact that this crowd before me consists of people with many different views. But that's great. That's our community. I respect that. I think we all should respect that. We have our differences and we may disagree often. But we need to find a place where we respect those differences of opinion, but we can still have civil discussions and conversations, and we can see each other rather than turn inward and turn towards hate. So thank you for coming today. Thank you in advance for your attention to our presenters. And in that spirit, let me introduce my colleague who's waiting in the wings here, literally, Kate Horowitz from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Welcome, Kate. And with Kate is Ryan O'Neill, an FBI agent here in Boise. They will be presenting you with information about federal hate crimes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's so nice to see so many people here on a holiday. I appreciate you all taking the time to come learn about how we can prevent, identify, and report hate crimes in our community. So I'm Kate Horowitz. I'm the Executive Assistant U.S. Attorney, and I'm also the Civil Rights Coordinator for the District of Idaho. With me is Special Agent Ryan O'Neill with the FBI, who, among other federal law violations, investigates civil rights, including hate crimes. Now, as you all know, hate crimes create fear and they divide our community. And today we're going to share what a hate crime is, how it differs from a hate incident, and how we can engage our community support systems and our legal community so that we can help identify, report, and prevent these divisive crimes. Now, we've all seen too often how individuals filled with hate can commit violent acts within our community that reverberate through our community. And hate crimes, this is especially true because the victims are chosen because of who they are, the trait that they share among their community, their race, their religion, their sexual orientation. Now, all of these crimes leave tragedies throughout their community, and there are nationally known and recognized ones, but there are also local violent acts that happen that affect our community. So let's go through part 1 through 3 of what we're going to talk about today. Part 1. We'll start by providing an overview of hate crimes and hate incidences to help you identify them if and when they occur. In part 2, we'll discuss the importance of reporting hate crimes and incidences to law enforcement so that they can respond appropriately. And this is, I'd just like to take a note, especially important when you are talking about hate crimes, because the communities and the respect between those communities and law enforcement and the relationship between those communities is vital to the proper reporting. And lastly, in part 3, we'll talk about strategies for responding to and preventing hate crimes. That includes strengthening relationships, how you report, etc. I think the most important thing about today's meeting is what happens when you guys leave this room. What do you do with the information that you learn today? Well, our hope is that we will provide you with enough information that you feel empowered to build relationships with your community, know how to report a crime, and recognize when it is a hate crime. So let's start by talking about hate crimes and hate incidences. So what is a hate crime? In general, a hate crime is an act of violence like murder, assault, arson. It can also be vandalism, so it can affect property, and threats of violence that is motivated by membership of someone in a group or a class of people that's protected by law. So federal hate crimes cover certain crimes because of someone's race, color, national origin, religion, disability, sexual orientation, family status, sex, gender, and gender identity. Other federal laws protect these groups from discrimination, and we'll touch on that a bit later as well. Now, some people might ask, why would you have a special crime that covers hate crimes when you already have a criminal violation that covers the underlying act? So you already have a crime for murder, you already have a crime for assault. Well, the impacts of these crimes so create fear and issues within the particular community that there is a separate harm that is created beyond the particular victim who is victimized. It hurts the group. It hurts the entire community. That's why we have hate crimes. That's why it's not just an assault. It's not just another crime. It is a separate, special type of crime. Idaho also has a statute that covers hate crimes. It's the malicious harassment. It covers race, color, and national origin, as well as religion. And we so value at the U.S. Attorney's Office our partnerships with the state and local law enforcement, including Canyon County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, who is here, and they'll provide more information about this particular statute later in the presentation, so I'm not going to go through it right now. So, of course, not all hate-motivated conduct can be prosecuted as a hate crime. Law enforcement has to really look at and investigate the circumstances surrounding the complaint to determine whether or not they satisfy the legal elements required for the hate crime statutes. So, for example, under the First Amendment of the Constitution, people have the right to express themselves even if their message is one of hate, and we fully respect that right. Not every insult and slur is a hate crime. That type of hateful conduct is what we would call a hate incident. So this diagram shows the relationship between hate crimes, hate incidences, and discrimination. And remember that just because law enforcement maybe can't prosecute something as a hate crime, that doesn't mean that nothing can be done. So some hate incidences, like bullying and harassment in school, or discrimination and mistreatment in housing and public accommodations, like hotels and restaurants, those might be considered discrimination under federal law, and the Department of Justice enforces federal laws against discrimination on the basis of the same categories protected by federal hate crimes laws. Now, these laws are civil laws. They're not criminal laws, so someone won't go to jail, but there are other remedies that are afforded under the civil law. Back pay, requiring additional training, or preventing future violations. So even when a hate incident cannot be prosecuted, information about that hate incident is still useful to law enforcement. So data about hate incidences helps police understand more about the trends against certain categories or groups, and it helps officers investigate future hateful incidences or hate crimes that are occurring in that community. So reporting to the police brings awareness to the problem within the community. We encourage people to report all hate incidences that they believe may be a hate crime or the hate incident itself. And if someone believes that they are being discriminated against under federal law, please contact our office. The Department of Justice takes that very seriously. So number 2, what do you do if you think that you have either witnessed a hate crime or someone comes to you and says, this is my experience, I experienced violence, and you've identified that it could potentially be based on membership in a protected class? Well, the first thing that you do is you call 911, right? You make sure that you report it to the local law enforcement and get whatever emergency assistance you can. Once everybody's safe, we encourage you to also contact the local FBI office. You can contact them at the website listed there and you can provide tips on that website, but you can also call the local Boise field office, and that number will be on the last slide of this presentation. So the FBI will contact both our office and the Civil Rights Division at Washington, D.C., and we will all come together and respond to that. Now, reporting hate crimes is critical because it can help police stop dangerous people before they can harm anybody else. And it can also alert police to a potential tension rising in a specific community. So when reporting a hate crime, please include as many details of the incident as possible. And in addition to what you would ordinarily report if you were the victim of a crime, where it occurred, the times, the names of potential witnesses, you also want to think about what could potentially be more on point with a hate crime. So for example, the victim is part of a protected class, where specifically it happened, if it happened near the synagogue or the Anne Frank Memorial. You can also provide the FBI with any supporting documents, such as police and medical reports and photographs. Simply reporting these impacts factors to law enforcement and can help make the difference of identifying whether or not this is an assault or this is an assault because of someone's membership in a protected class. And it's not always an easy distinction to recognize, and these factors can be really critical in identifying it and getting it to the right law enforcement. Please also encourage victims of these crimes to use the resources available to them. Being the victim of a crime is hard enough. Being the victim of a crime because of who you are is an incredibly difficult burden, and everyone needs resources. And DOJ offers supports for victims as well as their communities, because again, the crime is bigger than the one individual victim. So the Office of Victims of Crime funds DOJ's Community Relations Services. These are tools that can provide resources to people who have been victimized by federal crime, such as counseling and potentially compensation for other impacts of violent crime. So reporting hate crime also helps law enforcement improve the accuracy of the FBI's annual hate crime data. The FBI's statistics come from local law enforcement agencies all over the country who voluntarily send their data to the FBI. Now, this latest report was most recently released in December of 2022, and it's based on data from 2021. Police departments use crime statistics to determine priorities and allocate funding and how they're going to use their limited resources. So the more accurate that the data being reported is, the more accurately we'll be able to allocate resources. Now, some of you may be looking at this chart and thinking, well, 7,000 hate crimes. We have a population of over 300 million people in the United States. This is underreported crime. It's hugely underreported. There are over 18,000 law enforcement agencies in the United States. In 2021, 11,834 law enforcement agencies submitted information to the FBI about hate crimes. But 81% of them reported nothing, that no hate crimes occurred. And that's a problem. That's a problem for allocating resources, and that's a problem for adequately addressing this type of crime. The Idaho statistics bear out the national ones. In 2021, FBI hate crime data showed a continued increase in hate crime incidences, 42. 110 entities submitted reports on hate crime. Of those 42 instances, 26 were based on race, 11 based on LGBTQ identification, and 4 based on religion. So why are people reporting hate crimes to the police? Well, the most common reason is that victims don't report because they had a non-law enforcement resolution. That's 38%. About another quarter just simply believe that the police would not do anything. And that is exactly why we are so encouraged to see you all here today. It's building these relationships and connecting and getting the information out that will help remedy this underreporting. So let's talk about how federal and local law enforcement hold the people who commit these crimes accountable. And for that, I will turn to Agent O'Neill, who will discuss what the state does in terms of responses to hate crime incidences.
Good afternoon. As Kate mentioned, when a hate crime or a potential hate crime occurs, it may start in a local jurisdiction as an assault or some other crime of violence, and it may be some time before we're able to make a determination on whether or not it's a hate crime, but just know that well before usually you hear about it in the public, federal law enforcement, state law enforcement, county, city, we all are working together towards the same common goal in trying to determine the best way to handle these type of cases, get our prosecutors offices involved at the U.S. Attorney's Office or county prosecutors, and try to make the best determination we can on how to handle these cases. We also work closely with non-law enforcement entities in the communities, nonprofits, and different entities that provide services to victims to try to make sure both that we prosecute the person responsible for the crime, as well as help the victims that are victims of the crime deal with it.
Thanks, Ryan. You know, I think one of the important byproducts of coming and speaking to members of the community is that the FBI or the U.S. Attorney's Office can seem kind of scary and formal, and you know, people aren't sure if they want to call in and report something. So I think it's really helpful the more we get out into the community and you see that we're humans, we're people, and I don't think we're scary. I think that's just wonderful for the community. So if anyone's interested in having additional training or resources of this kind of nature, please come speak to me after this event. I'd be happy to discuss that opportunity with you. So again, we hope that today's program is the beginning of an ongoing partnership between law enforcement, members of the community, and everyone to combat hate crime. Please report hate crimes and incidences to police, the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Civil Rights Division. And remember that even if it's not prosecuted, it can still provide important data to the FBI and DOJ about how resources are allocated. We can also help connect victims with the resources that they need to persevere and survive and thrive after the attack. This is our contact information. Again, please don't hesitate to reach out if anyone has concerns or questions or is interested in additional training and resources on this important topic. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your holiday on Monday to come be with us. I'm encouraged to see everyone here and the great turnout, and I thank you for your time. And now we'll call Vincent Player, the Regional Director of DOJ Community Relations Service, to speak. Thank you, Vincent.
Good afternoon, everyone. I need a little better than that. Good afternoon, everyone. There we go. Now I know we're engaged now, okay? I'm excited, more than excited to be here for this event, and more than excited by getting the invitation again from Josh and his team to invite me to come back to speak to you all about the work that my agency does. Department of Justice Community Relations Service, I'm going to say that again. Emphasize Community Relations Service. So I'm going to give you kind of a down and dirty about what we do, some of the services we provide, and how we work with other agencies to cultivate capacity for peace in an area of, could be hate crimes, could be, gender-related stuff, and I'll kind of get to that in my, talk here today. So again, my name is Vince Player, and I'm one of 3 regional directors for Department of Justice Community Relations Service, another federal agency, one of the 52 components. We're a small, but I think a mighty agency. We're probably about 30 strong, with about 30 people that actually do the field work and the work that we do. And I've been in this position for about 3 years. I'm kind of transitioning from a law enforcement background into this position. And the reason why I was enamored about this job is because out of the jobs that I worked in law enforcement, my work in communities was the one that brought me the most gratification. So I was tickled when I was selected for this position. So we provide some unique free services, and again, as my grandfather used to say, if it's free, give me 3, right? Free services to the community. So we work with community groups, academic institutions, faith groups, city governmental agencies, law enforcement, and we assist them in building capacity for peace. So we originally started, and a lot of people don't know about this. This is so fitting because this is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Originally started in 1964 with the passage of Title 10 of the Civil Rights Act. In fact, during the signing of that act, Martin Luther King and other leaders gathered around President Lyndon Baines Johnson as he signed that transformational act, which gave us the jurisdiction to assist communities and address the needs in areas of race, color, creed, national origin, in order to reduce community tension. So I said a lot to mean that we work with communities to help them build capacity for bringing solutions to an end, hopefully. So in 2009, we were given some additional jurisdictional areas to include gender identification, sexual orientation, religion, disability, race, color, and national origin. So again, our agency is impartial, voluntary, confidential, and again, I want to emphasize no cost. I keep saying that is because I think we're an underutilized agency, so if there's a need for us, feel free to reach out. I oversee our activities in 3 regions: Pacific Northwest, our Rocky Mountain states, and our West Coast. So basically, if you look at the United States geographically, Colorado to the west, to include Guam and Hawaii, are my geographical areas. But you would think, you probably have a huge staff. No, I have 3 people to do the work that we do along those geographical areas. So if you think about it, are there things that occur in today's society that broach those jurisdictional areas that I mentioned? There's a whole lot of them. So again, as Kate mentioned, if you don't speak up, we don't know about it, we can't help you. So again, we're an impartial agency, voluntary, confidential. We provide mediation, consultation, training in 3 main service areas. One of the things I like to say, especially when I'm speaking with, like, say, law enforcement officials, let me be that agency if you're willing to work with us, because our work is voluntary. They have to say, yeah, we need your help. Let me help you look at your blind spots. Because sometimes we get wrapped around the axe about looking forward. We're not looking to the left and to the right. And we bring what we like to say best or better practices. We've been involved in just about major incidents around the world, around the nation, but you don't really hear about us because we don't really get involved with the media. The work that we do with the agency we work with is confidential. We don't broach that confidentiality because we could face some stiff some penalties. So 3 main areas that we do our work in: administration of justice, which unfortunately, most of our work is in that arena. It could involve police incidents that are controversial, George Floyd, and I can go down a list of things where we've been involved since 1964. So if you think of a major incident involving law enforcement that made national news, we probably had a hand in doing some of the work that we do there. But again, you're not going to really hear about us. And we really like to fly under the radar to do the work that we do. Also, number 2 is education. We work with school tensions. Again, are there a lot of school tensions? Of course there are. Are there a lot of bias incidents in schools? Of course there are, like hate crimes, hate speech in schools. Bullying, there's a lot of bullying in schools. Yes, we have some specific services, some consultation that we can do and along those areas in education. And also just general community relations, demographic shifts, public demonstrations. We teach community groups how to protest in a way where it's safe for everybody. Because at the end of the day, law enforcement doesn't want to put hands on people, and community groups want to have a safe demonstration. So we, again, some best or better practices in those areas during the height of the George Floyd, when a lot of agencies were in the streets doing public demonstrations, which by law they have the right to do so. We were kind of guiding them with some of the service we provide and kind of telling them, you might want to think about this, you might want to do this, you might want to do this. This way you alleviate that potential for law enforcement engagement in a negative way. In addition to the consultation we do, we have many training programs, dialogues that we do. One of our strengths, I think, is getting people in a room to have those crucial conversations, and that's important. There's a number of ways you can do that. You can have groups together, talking. You can do what we call shuttle mediation, where I talk to one group, I talk to another group. We kind of bring up the subject that the other group is bringing, we kind of try to help them come to a resolution. Also, we have programs specifically designed for LGBT community, and programs specifically designed for like protecting places of worship. Again, along the realm of hate, there's been an uptick in places of worship. So we kind of come in and help educate them about grant funding, about education to the parishioners and community members. That way everybody kind of feels safe. And again, we're trying to assist them and helping them with capacity to peace. So I didn't really get into the type of programs because there's a lot of them, and I only have like 4 minutes to talk. So if you're interested in working with us, our name is in the handout. Well, not my name is in there, but if you want to talk to me specifically, since I oversee this region, I'll be around. I'll give you my business card. We can continue the conversation. And on that note, I'll pass the hat back to the U.S. Attorney. I guess not, to Latanya. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vincent. So now we're actually going to take a brief break, give you an opportunity to use the restroom, get a cup of coffee and a snack. Please know that if you leave the building is locked, so you'll have to be checked back in and show your ID, okay? We're going to start back at exactly at 2:40.
What a great crowd. Thanks for everybody coming back. My name's Doug Brigham. I'm the other co-president. I like to say I'm the lesser half of the co-presidency, and that's always been true with Jim. But we are thrilled at the College of Idaho to host this event. For those of you that don't know, we're a small college, about 1,100 students on our campus, predominantly students from Idaho, but we also have students from 81 different countries, which we are proud of. Over a third of our students are first-gen students. Over a third of our students identify as students of color. And we're proud of the diversity, we're proud of the inclusion we have on this campus, and proud to share it today. And it's my thrill to introduce another student who also has written a poem that she is going to share. Bezawit Kassaye is here. She is a double major in both business and computer science, and we are thrilled to have her share her poem with you today. Thanks.
I have a dream. I have a dream. I have a dream that I will not be assassinated from a place of hatred just because of my looks and my dreams appearing too big for my skin, unrealistic for where I was born, unconventional dreams I carry with me in my home. My skin is not a house, but I call it home. It's a traveler, diasporic, golden shining black. My skin has seen it all as it crossed the Atlantic. It knows pain, growth, revolution, harassment, racism, discrimination. But it also knows love, community, hustle, perseverance, nature, kindness, and humility. But there's one thing my skin longs for: freedom. It has started to taste it, but it's always mixed with racial profiling, sugar-coated with structure, politics, covert racism that seems to bring it down when it starts to spread its wings, when it starts to have hopes and dreams, boxing it in a checklist of stereotypes that it constantly tries to but fails to meet, hence believes it's not worthy of being accepted as it is. It's tired of being a statistics, except to just increase the diversity numbers required to fit certain characteristics. Tick, 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 the check mark that fit the history of my skin into a box. But my true character lives in the in-between spaces. My true character has roots in beyond stereotypes. And as an immigrant, I might carry that box everyone seems to like. But as a traveler, I carry my heart that lives in the in-between spaces. I carry my home with all its history and tell my story, my truth that no one else can write in a history book. So I also have a dream, beyond those small empty boxes, waiting for me to check them. Be it a doctor, engineer, leader, actor, or a poet. And I do not seek to satisfy my skin's thirst for freedom by drinking from a cup of hatred and bitterness, because darkness can't drive out darkness, only light can do that. So I give out love and act from a place of serenity and hope to bring peace and equality to the climate that we are constantly killing with our endless fighting. And I hope the world to feel what I am feeling. And that is what I keep on dreaming. So I also have a dream. I have a dream. I have a dream that I will be known for my character instead of my skin color. Thank you. And now I am happy to introduce Ruth Hughes, a Canyon County Deputy Prosecutor. She has been with the Canyon County since 2013, and she is a key member of the Special Victims Unit, which specializes in major victim crimes, sex crimes, and crimes against children. And she has received her law degree from the University of Idaho. Please help me welcome Ruth Hughes to the stage.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate that all of you took the time to come here, that this is such an important topic for all of us to be aware of and really prioritize in our everyday lives. So I'm here to speak about the state of hate crimes as prosecuted on the state level. The Idaho Code section for hate crimes is not titled hate crimes. As Ms. Horowitz mentioned before, it is titled malicious harassment. It's under Idaho Code 18-7902. And what it states is that a hate crime or a malicious harassment occurs when someone has the specific intent to intimidate or harass another based on that person's race, color, religion, ancestry, or national origin. And that intimidation or harassment causes either physical injury to another or causes damage to property, whether that be real property or personal property. So, as you can tell, it is much more limited than what the federal statute allows. The state code does not allow for prosecution under malicious harassment, for example, based on sex, sexual orientation, gender, things of that nature. So we're more limited. I went through and I was looking at the prosecutions that we've had recently, at least within my jurisdiction. I prosecute in Canyon County, and we've only had a couple of cases that we've actually charged malicious harassment in the past several years. And there are a number of reasons for that. One of them is, as I mentioned before, we're much more limited in what qualifies under the malicious harassment code. But in addition to that, the maximum penalty for prosecution under malicious harassment is up to 5 years in prison and up to a $5,000 fine. So we often will see cases where that comes through and it might qualify under malicious harassment. It may be a class of persons that's not qualified under malicious harassment, so we'll charge something different. We'll charge another code. For example, one of the codes that I saw very frequently was aggravated battery. An aggravated battery, for example, has a maximum penalty of up to 15 years in prison. So we get more potential for punishment of these crimes when it qualifies, when we charge it under a different code. Another example that I commonly saw was riot. When there's more than one person, if it meets the other elements for the riot code, that gives us a maximum penalty, a minimum of 5 years, but up to 20 years. So there's not a lot of prosecution, at least in Canyon County, under the malicious harassment code because we have those limitations. We've had some cases that came through that did qualify as hate crimes, and we weren't able to prosecute under the malicious harassment code. We had, the most memorable one that came to mind was a homicide back from 2016. A number of individuals were targeting members of our LGBTQ community. Again, that's not something we can prosecute under malicious harassment. They were putting out ads, trying to get members of that community to respond to the ads, and when they did, they would rob them, beat them, and we couldn't prosecute a hate crime. In this particular case, the victim died of his injuries. And so what we did is we prosecuted all the persons involved for murder, for aiding and abetting murder, But we also reached out to our partners at the U.S. Attorney's Office. And what they were able to do in conjunction with us is while we pursued the state charges for murder, they were able to pursue the hate crimes aspect of the case. And between the two, we were able to get those convictions and get those people held accountable for the horrific acts that they perpetrated on that day. So it's a challenge to be able to prosecute these cases because sometimes while we may think they qualify, sometimes we're limited based on what the state code says. So we're really appreciative for our partners in law enforcement, our partners at the U.S. Attorney's Office, who are able to help us hold people accountable and find justice for members of our community who have been victimized in these ways. And the reason for that, Ms. Horwitz mentioned this before, it's just so crucial that no member of our community be targeted for any of these horrific violent crimes. But our partnerships both with the U.S. Attorney's Office as well as with all of our law enforcement partners has really been tremendous in helping us work together to get these cases prosecuted and have people come to justice. I don't really have much else for you this morning. Again, my name is Ruth Coos. I'm a deputy prosecuting attorney with Canyon County. Thank you again for coming and being here today. It is so very crucial that you're here. Thank you so much. Our next speaker today is someone who many of you know very well. Don't think he needs much of an introduction. The chief of our Caldwell Police Department, Rex Ingram.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I don't have a speech prepared, so I'm going to speak from the heart. What a beautiful crowd today. Just want to say thank you to the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, the College of Idaho, and everyone else who made this day happen. This is my first Martin Luther King Day in uniform in the state of Idaho. The first 20 years of my career, I was in Los Angeles, so I spent those Martin Luther King holidays walking in the MLK parade, which was an amazing thing in uniform. I'm going to tell a little story about a young man, or a young boy that became pretty successful. This young boy was a fifth-generation law enforcement officer who comes from a very diverse background. His grandparents were in Egypt, and they were Jewish people, and his grandfather was locked up in the early 50s by the government, was oppressed by the government. The family ended up making it out of the country, going to France, and then coming to the United States of America, which is why we're all here too, to pursue our dreams of life, liberty, and happiness. This young man grew up to be the chief of Caldwell PD, and it was me. And so having a very mixed background, growing up in Los Angeles and being exposed to all types of different people in this melting pot looks very much similar to this room here today. I grew up in Mexico, and I came to the United States and had to learn English as a second language when I was 5 years old. And so for me, growing up with challenges in life, and you would call roadblocks and just other things that got in the way to make life more difficult, aspired me to be who I am today, and the leader I am today, and the father I am today, and the husband I am today. And I'm super honored to be here with you guys because this is what this exactly means. We're here to protect our country, to protect Caldwell, to make this place the best city in the great state of Idaho. And I'm proud to say that in my 20-year career in law enforcement, I have never worked with a racist police officer. And I can tell you that every single officer that's in my command right now at CPD leads with the heart, and they're vowed to protect the constitutional rights of everyone here and to protect life and property. And I'm super proud to be here as the chief of police and to be partnered with our federal partners. Josh Hurwitz, thank you very much for your unwavering support in making sure that Caldwell is the greatest police department here in Idaho. So thank you very much, guys. I'm very proud to be here. I'm going to keep my remarks super short today, and I'm going to introduce our next speaker, one of our community perspective, Miss Christina Bruce Benyon. Please come up here.
Hi, everybody. We're going to move into a panel. Wow, it sounds really loud. So I'm going to give the panelists just a minute to come up here and get settled, and then we'll get started. Gosh, I just want to say again, I know it's been said several times, but just want to thank everybody for, if you don't live in Caldwell, for making the drive out here from other places in the Treasure Valley, and just really appreciate so many people coming and joining us for this event today. I'm Christina Bruce Benyon, and I'm the Executive Director of the Wassmuth Center for Human Rights. For those of you who don't know, the center is the home of the Anne Frank Human Rights Memorial in Boise along the Greenbelt. We are in the process of building a center as well, an education center, so come check us out in the future. The work that we do really is primarily working to promote respect for human dignity and diversity through education, and to foster individual responsibility to work for peace and justice. So I think all the folks in this room, I see you as part of the work that we are all doing together. And we're really honored, the center's honored to be a partner in bringing you all this event today. So far today, we're going to kind of switch gears a little bit. We have learned a lot of really important information about hate crimes and the steps that we can take if we or someone we know has been affected by one. However, if things have gone as far as an actual hate crime or violence happening, they've already gone too far. So today we want to talk a little bit more about how can we interrupt these kinds of situations sooner. What culture, what type of community do we want to have in order to prevent these kinds of acts from happening in the first place? At the center, we use a model that we call the spiral of injustice that describes how acts of bias and hate start with language, words that we use, words that we don't use, images, signs, all kinds of things, and how they can spiral downward through avoidance, discrimination, violence, and ultimately elimination. If we don't interrupt the spiral early on, situations worsen. We interrupt the spiral by being upstanders who choose to act, to speak out, to work for justice, to educate, and to be an example for others. For our panel today, we will be hearing from 3 individuals who work across the community in different ways to interrupt the spiral and to further a culture of understanding and inclusion. They embody what it means to be an upstander. So, kind of on my left, our fabulous panelists today include Irma Valdivia. She's the owner of Jalapenos Restaurants in the area, if you haven't been there, delicious. She's a community leader and a motivational speaker. To her left, LaTanya Haney-Keith is the Vice President of High Impact Practices right here at the College of Idaho, and also an attorney at law. And at the end, we have Lorenzo Olvera, who is the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the St. Alphonsus Health System. Also a graduate of C of I, so go Yotes. So thank you all for being willing to be here today. So the first question is for all of you. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and the work that you do. What motivates you to strive for a stronger community?
Well, hello. Oh, is it on? Here, I'll switch it. Okay. All right, wonderful. Well, as was mentioned, my name is Irma Valdivia, and I am the proud owner of a wonderful restaurant here in this community. But more so, and most important than that, I am a mother and a servant of Christ, and I am blessed enough, and I was so blessed to be raised in this beautiful state of Idaho. I moved to Emmett, Idaho when I was around 10 years old. When my family immigrated here from Mexico, we had nothing. We had obviously no money, no much of anything, from clothes to shoes and all of those things. So when we immigrated here, we were accepted into the amazing little community of Emmett because we were needed. And I was so lucky I was able to go to school, and I learned English, and I had so many challenges. And back then, I would just think, well, they're challenges, they don't really know what to do with us, right? There's only a few brown people in town, it will get better. And so though I saw my life as so fortunate because I had so much opportunity and my parents were then, able to take care of us financially and such, I didn't really understand that someday I might be sitting here discussing all of these things with you, but I am very proud to be an Idahoan. I am very proud to be here because those challenges I had as a young girl, I then saw my daughter have in Nampa later in life. She is now a Boise State graduate, and we got through some really tough times, but I just want to, share the important thing right away from me and why I'm sitting here. Is it because I want to see change? I'm going to share, what I do a little bit more in the community, but I want to see change. I want to see justice for all and love and hate really taken out of our lives, and I hope that everyone here is here for the same reason. I proudly serve on the Boys and Girls Club of Canyon County, and the reason that I'm there is to make sure that all kids not only have food and education, but also a fair chance at life. I'm also on the Nampa Chamber of Commerce Board, where I proudly serve to help all businesses, small or large, become successful and all make sure that they are all given the right opportunity and to be successful. And it doesn't matter if it's, a restaurant 2 doors down from me, my commitment to that business is the same. And I'm also on the board of St. Alphonsus, and I'm on the community board. I have no experience in health and any type of financial, foundation background. What I am there to do is to represent the community, to represent every single person in our community, regardless of your age, your color, what your beliefs are, how you identify. And so we do a really good job with that there at St. Al's. And again, I'm on all of those boards, very surprised to myself because as a young Mexican girl, I never thought that I would ever even have the opportunity to hold a mic, let alone be in these organizations that are so important to our community. So I'm very happy to be here today.
Hopefully this works. Is this one working? Can everyone hear me? Great. Well, I'm so happy to be here, and it's so great to see so many of you here at this event today. I'm LaTanya Haney-Keith. As Christina mentioned, I am part of the leadership team here at the college, but first and foremost, right, I'm an educator. I really thrive on working with our students here at the college, right? We have the great honor and the great responsibility of educating young adults here at the college. And so it's a tremendous responsibility I think we take very seriously, and we think about it from a variety of different lenses. I'm a member of the Representation, Inclusion, and Equity Alliance here at the college. There are members of our executive team on there, but also our faculty, staff, and students. And we really attempt to work at developing a culture of inclusivity. You heard Co-President Brigham mention earlier the tremendous diversity here we have on campus. We have students across Idaho from both urban and rural backgrounds, various socioeconomic backgrounds. We've got international students, students that identify or self-identify from historically marginalized communities. And so our goal is to be able to build an opportunity for us to learn from each other and to feel welcomed here on this campus. And we hope all of you that even came from the public today felt welcomed on this campus. It's incredibly important to us. And the other part of Christina's question about why do I do this work, why do I think about it, I think from two perspectives. The first is personal. I grew up in a mixed-race family. My father's African American, my mother is Caucasian from England, grew up in a military family. They got married in the early 70s, and admittedly, we were victims or witnesses to incidents of hate throughout growing up and well into later in my life. And so to be, maybe it's a little cliche to say you want to leave a better legacy for your children, but I want to leave a better legacy for my children. I want to have a community in which we care about each other and we show significant empathy and understanding and celebrating our differences instead of moving forward in a divisive way. But the other reason why I feel like this is really important is I think about what we're facing today here in our country, but in particular here in Idaho. We are facing a recession, facing inflation. I do a lot of work in housing outside of the college as well. I sit on the Capital City Development Corporation for Boise. We are facing a significant housing crisis, many more families that are entering into homelessness and food insecurity. We've got issues impacting our farmers and agricultural industry here with climate change and lack of water. We just have a lot of issues that seem insurmountable, but I think we can tackle them if we view it through the lens of coming together and coming up with creative solutions and hearing diversity of thought. And so that's another reason why I think it's very important for us to have these dialogues today, and I'm really happy to be here.
Everybody. Oh, yep. Hey, everybody. My name is Lorenzo Orvera. And a little bit about me. I guess what I would lead with is I'm a proud Caldwell boy. You know, I grew up not that far from here. You know, in fact, this is bringing a lot of nostalgia because one of my teachers from 7th grade is in the room here. You know, Maricela, I went to, with her son, we were in Boy Scouts together. We got Arnold in there, and Arnold and I were trying to conquer the world when I was a student here, and sure enough, there's plenty of professors in here that gave me B's when I really felt that I deserved A's. That did help me. Joking aside, I understand that I earned the grade, and I get and understand how that all works. But for the last 15 years, I've been gone. You know, I've been in the East Coast working in federal government, and I think you realize actually when you leave the state for a little while just how great the state of Idaho can really, you know, really be. And so I was really fortunate to find a partner that's also from Canyon County. She claims Nampa, but lived in Caldwell, and I claim Caldwell and spent a little time in Nampa. But we came back after being gone, and we came back for this opportunity to serve as the Director of Diversity, Inclusion, Equity at St. Alphonsus Health System. And so my job there is essentially to do that, to advance diversity, inclusion, equity across the health system, across our hospitals, and across all the different clinics. And we do that, obviously, in partnership with our parent company, Trinity Health. But we do this type of work because it's a central part of our mission, our values, right? And ultimately, our vision of where we're going forward. Here at St. Alphonsus, or there at St. Alphonsus, we serve in the spirit of the gospel, to be a compassionate and transforming healing presence, you know, to the people that we serve. One of our core values, you see it on our website, is reverence, where we honor the sacredness and the dignity of every person. And our vision to be this national leader of improving health calls upon us to really tackle health equity. And as the DEI director, my job is to create a customized plan that's unique to both Idaho and Oregon and all the different clinics. And so part of our plan does include increasing representation. And I know a lot of people think DEI and they think about ethnicity, but no, it's not just race and ethnicity. It's a lot more about that. Look across this room. We want our workforce to be reflective of the communities that we serve. We spend a lot of time in our supplier diversity areas because we spend a lot of our time or a lot of our money in the communities, and we want to make sure that we're investing in our communities. I mentioned health equity. In fact, right now, if I wasn't here, I'd be in this big meeting across Trinity Health on how we actually tackle and achieve health equity, which is easier said than done because let's admit it, the hospital system's only going to have a certain portion of this piece. But more importantly, and I think the reason why I was invited to come is this last piece of like, we strive to develop a culture of inclusion and belonging. And we feel that might be an opportunity to not necessarily combat hate, but to provide a little bit more sense of inclusion for the people that work and that use our facilities. And so what motivates me, I think I mentioned at the beginning, I'm very much a proud Idahoan. As diversity, inclusion, equity increases in our healthcare spaces, you're talking about how that affects patient experiences or the quality of care. And what you're really talking about is my mom. You're talking about my wife or my child or my children who literally this week were in the hospital system. And so this is what kind of motivates me is that as I come back home, you know, and I'm here at the college and I'm here in the city that I literally was born in, like this kind of stuff really is inspiring to me. When I left, I remember thinking that Idaho Kind was a thing growing up, Idaho Con was a thing. The last thing, when I was growing up, even in the Boy Scout system or here at the high school, the last thing that anything ever that I was asked about is like, who did you vote for, or what did you do, and all this kind of stuff. And so I'm inspired. I really am, and I mean this sincerely. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but I'm inspired to be an alumni of this institution, to be on the board of this institution, even though many of you guys gave me B's, but, you know, to be peer to, you know, that you're here and we're really tackling this issue. Because as one of our speakers mentioned, the city of Caldwell is great. And that's the piece that we have to remind ourselves as we continue this dialogue.
Thank you. This next question is for Irma as a start, and then feel free to pipe in others. As a business and community leader, where do you see language in its various forms being both a cause for pain, but also a cause for healing or a path to healing? What can we learn from the healing aspect of language to further an inclusive community, state, and country?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you. So how I think that there's different ways that I take this question on in my mind, but I think for today's topic, how can language affect and hurt people, and how can it heal them? Obviously, it's very simple to know how language can hurt people, right? We all know those words that our parents would, you know, ground us for, or smack us for, or whatever, if we used, and we know that towards someone, and we know they're wrong. And so I'd like for all of us to really think about words that maybe we think we used as a kid in playfulness ways, or that you thought were okay, or, you know, what's the big deal, and all of those things. And put yourself as a child, put yourself, you know, in that 10-year-old spot, or whatever age you might have had a little bit of a difficult time in. I always say 10 because that's when I immigrated here, and there were challenging years. But put yourself in, you know, maybe 15-year-olds. And if someone said one of those words to you, and you were, in fact, different, what would that do to your self-esteem? How would that affect your life as a whole? How would it affect the way you treat others? I think that if we put ourselves in the in the space of someone else, then you know, we'll never really know how they feel, because I always say, you know, I don't know what I would do. I'm not a young black man. You know, I don't know how I would feel. I'm not, you know, a transgender woman, or whatever it might be. But I respect, and I make a choice in my words, so that I never hurt anyone that I speak to or about. And so I think we are all smart enough to know that we need to choose our words wisely. As far as how we heal, you know, that's why we're here, right? I think everyone in this room is so awesome for being here, because we're here to heal as a world. We're here to heal as a community. We're here to learn from each other so that we can heal the world. And I know it starts in little Caldwell. Hey, it has to start somewhere. And further than that, it should start in our homes. Further than that, we heal in our homes. We speak of love and kindness in our homes to our children. You could be, you know, making millions of dollars a year in a perfect Caucasian family. You're the perfect family to show healing, because you have nothing to complain about. So you teach your children how to be loving and caring, because you had a great opportunity. You teach them how to treat others. In a home where you don't have much, maybe even not eat food, you still teach of, you know, love and kindness, and you talk to your children every day about healing and love, and you give them the space and the words that they need to express themselves. So we heal children, we heal adults, we heal each other by listening, by maybe not understanding because we don't look the same. Maybe I'll never fully understand, but I fully understand love, and I fully understand what it means to not feel loved, and what words, how impactful and hurtful they can be. So I say healing, even if you don't have a problem in your own home, it's your responsibility to our community, to our children, to our future, that you start healing others, even if you don't have to heal them or heal yourself.
I'll jump in there as well. And, oh, sorry, I see people about to applaud. You should applaud. Yes. I would just jump in just to say that I think cultural competency is a lifelong endeavor. I don't think there's anyone, none of us up here on stage are experts. I know, in talking to my students, we talk about cultural competency a lot. And there's concern, especially when we think about language, that if I say something, someone's going to react and be upset or angry, and I can't speak, I can't express myself. And I think we have to think about it from both sides, in the sense that I am often a perpetrator of using language that could potentially hurt someone, not knowing everybody's lived experience in the room. And so engaging in dialogue with individuals, palms open, understanding, again, having that empathy, and beginning to continue to learn. I think, in my mind, you're never going to be a cultural competency expert, right? It's a lifelong learning endeavor. And I think to understand how language can be harmful, but also understand how language can help us learn from each other. Why is this word something that we shouldn't use, or a phrase that we shouldn't use? Being in that posture of learning together and from each other, I think, is critically important as well.
Thank you. All right, this next question is for Lorenzo. In your role, and I think you started kind of going down this path a little bit, but maybe you can kind of go a little deeper. What similarities or differences do you see between kind of the larger landscape of combating hate and trying to create inclusive communities and the work that you're doing to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Yeah, so I mentioned at the beginning that we're very intentional of trying to cultivate this culture of inclusion and belonging because of those reasons, right, of our mission, our values, and our vision, our values, and our mission statement. But it really starts at the top. I mean, it starts at the leadership. It's reinforced in our policies, and it's reflected in our strategies. But more importantly, it can be found in the daily acts of care, when anyone comes to our facilities. But as a DEI, professional in this space, I do worry, about how some emotions can turn into, actions of hate and harm. And at St. Alphonsus, we have systems and policies in place, right? There are legal consequences to any of those things. But to your point, Christina, right, what we're trying to do is to enforce the different efforts, infrastructure, policy, the culture, so that it never gets to that level. And so in my space, we spend a lot of time working on unconscious bias, right? Sometimes our emotions can turn into these actions, and they're subconscious or they're unconscious, right? We're not doing it internally, and they can manifest into these things we call microaggressions. And those microaggressions can create, culture of unsafety. And so here at St. Alphonsus, right, when we say we want folks to be, that we want to have a culture of inclusion, what we mean is, right, we want to make sure that everyone feels safe, that everyone feels valued, and they have that sense of belonging to be their, authentic selves. But when we think about the broader program about how are we going to do this, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up those 4 levels of racism. And right, so at the very first level, you think about it at the individual level. So what can we all be doing, right, in the spirit of our mission, in the spirit of the gospel, right? What do we have to do and grow and understand about ourselves? That's at the personal level. Then that second level, that interpersonal level, is, well, then how does that manifest into how we're reacting with our colleagues and the folks that that come to us for care? And then we're very serious about the third piece, that organizational piece, that leadership piece, because we want people to understand and appreciate, who we are as an organization. And then the last one, and it really is the hardest one, I admit, but there is a systemic part of it. We understand that not only are we one of the major health providers around here, but we're part of the health industry, that we provide services in 2 different states, and that we're all connected, right, on this broader mission. And what I mean by that, healthcare across the United States. And so I constantly am being asked to figure out different strategies. I work with colleagues across across various departments, but more importantly, I partner with a lot of individuals in this room, right, and many that are not here, in figuring out how do we tackle this as a community. We've been finding a little bit of success in that type of approach. I'll be the first to admit that we're not there yet. We still have a lot of growth there, but I am very proud to work for an organization that is committed to tackling these types of issues.
Thanks, Lorenzo. For LaTanya, this next question is for you. And I think Lorenzo started to bring it up a little bit, but leadership can be defined in a lot of different ways. So as we think about sort of standing together against bias and hate, what are your thoughts about the role of leadership in that effort? And part 2 of the question, what role does education play in developing leadership in this area?
Yeah, I think leadership is critically important, but I do think we can think about it more broadly. We tend to think about the CEO, the president, our elected officials. Those are all incredibly, incredibly important leaders, but I think every single person in this room is and can be a leader. And so I try and think about it from where's my circle of influence, right? Being on the executive leadership team here at the college, I already have that ability to be a leader in that space. But what am I doing in my own community? What am I doing when I'm talking to my circle of friends and community members? What am I doing with some of the other professional or personal organizations of which I'm a part of? And so I think that being able to think about this issue and the way in which we lead and the way in which we interact with individuals, I think is really important. And Irma, you mentioned it earlier. When I think about what does it mean to lead, how do we do that work? I think it's really important to think about active listening. Right? Leading is not just about always speaking or that I'm the leader and therefore I know the answers. I think we really need to actively listen. I think the other piece for it for me is, who do you invite to the table? Who do you invite to be at the table when you're making important decisions or you're talking about an important issue in our community? Are you inviting all the people that look and act and speak just like you do, who think just like you do? Or are you inviting a broad range of diversity of thought so that we're able to understand the lived experience of everyone in that environment, whether it's in a corporate department, whether it's your community outside? Who are you inviting to that table? Especially if you have that power, right? There are a lot of us that understand that we have more power than others in certain instances. If you have a specific title, right? You have, I think, the responsibility to make sure the people at the table are much more diverse than perhaps just your particular view of thought. And so education, how does education play into that? I think it's critically important. I think one of the focuses of us here at the college is to help ensure that we are building our leaders. I mentioned earlier some of the many issues that we have in our society, and particularly here in our state. How are we going to solve those issues? It's really the individuals who we are educating today, being able to help those students think how to critically analyze, how to engage in civil dialogue, how to understand broad positions so that we can come up with those solutions for the future, I think are really important. So modeling and engaging in a dialogue, I think, is probably the most important thing that we can do as individuals, as leaders for ourselves.
All right, we are speeding along through this. So I can see people are getting a little it's like I need a shot of coffee in the room or something. For our final question, and this is for all of you, so maybe Irma, I'll let you start. How would you advise those in attendance to leave this event today and continue to be upstanders? As people who desire a more inclusive and respectful Idaho, how do we move forward? What are some specific things, maybe things a little outside of the box?
Okay, well, I'm going to start again by saying it starts in our homes. I think that, we have amazing teachers and amazing police force and amazing people in the community that we can always lean on. However, it's what we do in our own homes every day, is how we raise our kids, is what we talk to our grandkids about, to our grown children, whoever those people might be in your small circle. It's about opening up those discussions. It's about asking your grandson who's 5, does he have any brown friends? It's about asking, your daughter that's 16, why she, what she thinks about the school and how things are going, and has she ever felt a certain way? It's asking those questions that are tough, that a lot of us are afraid to get the answers for, but it's so important that we ask the questions, that we listen. And for us that are business owners or leaders in our businesses and our companies, going, even if you're not the leader or the owner, going to your HR department and asking, hey, can we do some sort of training? Or what are we doing differently in our company to make sure nobody feels different or nobody's left behind? Or, why don't we have a leader that doesn't look just like us? It's really asking those questions that are tough and acting on them and moving forward. If you don't get a good response or a healthy response from your child and it's concerning, then you go to the school. I think we have to stop being afraid, and that's something for me personally I've been working on really hard, and it's really hard. I'm not going to lie to you. When a lot of things were happening, and my daughter, who is biracial, and she's, the most amazing little kid, born in Boise, Idaho, grew up in Homedale catching gophers and wanting sheep. No different than all her best friends on the dance team and in school. She didn't see anything different. I made sure that after we had some incidents young on, I worked really hard as a mother to make sure that she didn't have to go through that. But having that tough conversation, and when she comes at me and says, hey mom, you have this huge reader board that 5 million people in Nampa read, because half the time you think you're funny, and they take the time to read it, why don't you put on there, Black Lives Matter, or something that will help us get through this hard time? And I said, Deja, I'm scared. And I was honest, and it was a really hard thing to say to my kid who really needed me to step up for her. And I said, I'm scared because I'll lose all my customers. I'm scared because if they stop coming in, how are we going to pay for our mortgage? And that is not a way to live. I shouldn't have to be scared to represent something that means so much to my family. So I challenge all of us to go back and do those things that scare us. That if you are being harassed by a certain police officer, that you should be able to call the chief and talk to him about it and not be scared that you're going to get more harassment. And that's, I think, that something as a community, we all pretend we don't see color and we all this and that. Let's be honest. We are in a community where we're not really comfortable and familiar with those conversations. Bring them to the table. Talk about them. And we will all be in a better place, and we will become a better tomorrow for our kids if we take on those hard questions.
You want me to follow that? She should have gone at the end. Goodness gracious. I don't know that mine's out of the box, but I do think, and Lorenzo mentioned this earlier, right? When we think about the way our brain works and that unconscious bias, right? Every time we look in this room, and I admit, I'm doing it too. I look around the room and I'm making judgments. I'm putting people in boxes. It's the way in which our brain works, right? We're making judgments about each other. And so I think that one thing that we can do that's concrete, but you have to work at it, is to force yourself to go up and talk to people whom you normally wouldn't do. In an event like this, when you look around the room, when we leave today and we go out and we have coffee, if there's any left, Bennett, you drink all the coffee, go and walk up to someone who you normally wouldn't walk up to because they don't look like you, because they wear glasses, because they wear combat boots. It doesn't really matter. Really force yourself to go engage in that. It's something that seems so simple. But I think it really does help us break down those perceived stereotypes, really helps us understand each other, really helps us reconnect with each other as humans, as individuals. And I think we need to do more of that, especially coming out of the pandemic. We're all socially awkward. We all are, just admit, we're all socially awkward. It's okay. And to be able to walk up when you're standing in a long line or in an elevator, oh my gosh, actually talk to someone in an elevator, right? But to do that, I think we need as a community to talk to each other and to be okay with that and to start breaking down those perceived stereotypes that we have that we automatically do when we look at somebody.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of what else I could say because I agree with everything that's been said. You know, this morning my son, and for those that don't know, I have almost a 2-year-old and a 2-month-old. So if I come off as tired, I am. I'm not gonna lie. They wake up every 2 hours here. But my son came into the office and he basically came up to me and he started doing this. I couldn't figure out what the heck this kid really wanted. He kept on doing this. What my son wanted me to do is he wanted me to play the guitar for him. For those that know, like I play in a mariachi band, and he wanted me to play the song. And so I played it, and he quickly was like, wrong song, put the instrument away, right? But I share that with you because of this really important aha moment. Like these kids are watching. They really are, you know, they may not be telling you specifically, but they're watching, they're sponges. And so I go back to the whole point of this conversation of like, yes, we can agree to disagree, but let's all agree that Idaho is great, that the city of Caldwell is great, and that our future are literally, not figuratively, are watching us. And so what can we walk away from this? And I guess I'm gonna, you know, just reinforce what I was always talking about is like, let's be champions of combating hate. Let's break those cycles before it gets too far. Let's check our own biases. And more than anything else, to Christina's point about what happens after this, we all have the power right now to go back into our institutions. And maybe not just the institutions, but think about it even at the more micro level in our offices of how we interact with our colleagues and ask, how are we being intentional in and developing a culture of inclusion? Yes, that does come with leadership, specifically compassionate leadership. And so I think that's what strives or what excites me about being in these spaces, and what's exciting about, you know, today as we honor the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr., but we also appreciate the fact that we have a lot of work to get done, right? And so I offer, and I mean this sincerely, you know, a hand in friendship and in partnership. If you are serious about developing a culture of inclusion, St. Alphonsus and I want to work with you, especially if you're from Caldwell, because this is home for me. Again, this is personal for me. I want to be able to have my son come over here and not worry about his opinions. I want to have him grow up in being in a place where he's not going to get yelled at, where we're not going to have so much law enforcement around such an important conversation. I'm not joking, folks. This is a serious belief of mine. And it was reinforced today just by a young kid coming into the office, wanting me to play a song. So I really thank you all. I thank the college. Thank you, really, Christine, the work that you all do at your organization. It really is incredible work.
Thank you.
Just one more round of applause and thank you for the panelists today. And last but not least, I'd love to introduce Camille Massad. He is the ASCI president here at the College of Idaho, majoring in business administration and biomedical science. They're all such great overachievers here, but thank you.
Thank you. Should I use this? This mic on? Yes, it is. All right, so I would first like to thank our co-presidents, both Jim and Doug, for inviting me here today, as well as LaTanya for coordinating this event, and for Zoe and Bez for their wonderful expressions of who they are as individuals. So give it up for them. So every student on this campus has a unique story as to how and why they came to the College of Idaho. And knowing this, we represent a community far greater than that of Caldwell, Idaho, and even this nation. So when we discuss hate in this country, or we witness hate, and it makes national news, and it lights up the rest of the world, and the discussion continues. But unfortunately, the vast majority of these crimes go unnoticed. And it never reaches the masses, and it tends to burn a scar within our community. Even our campus isn't necessarily immune to experiencing hate. But what's important about our close-knit community is that when people experience these types of things, there's a healthy discussion and a call to action. I believe that because of this campus's multifaceted diversity, we're able to come together on a variety of issues and not just hate. I believe our students go the extra mile to combat hate speech and hate crimes and hate and anything of that nature. But as time goes on, uniting against hate will reach beyond the walls of academia, debate, panels, and conversations. With patience and healthy discussion and a lot of time, bringing this to the attention of the common citizen is something that students on this campus are doing on a day-to-day basis. Maybe not in a strict and direct fashion, but in their ability to welcome all walks of life and to use the resources available to lift others up and flooding the world with kindness. I would also like to note that when students are taking small, consistent steps to make change, often it's executed. Generally, we are not taught to believe in the ideas of flipping the office desks and causing chaos and rewriting the entire legal doctrine all at once, but it's shown that a clear and specific focus on an issue is what ignites momentum in the positive direction. With this, I'd like to re-invite back to the stage the man who recognizes these issues as part of his critical mission, the U.S. Attorney for the Idaho District, Josh Hurwitz.
So thank you, Camille. Thank you to our panel. That was fantastic. And I think we're a little bit ahead of schedule, but this concludes our program. On behalf of myself, everyone in my office, Kate, the FBI as well, this has been an incredible event and a real honor to come into the College of Idaho and into a space that, frankly, we don't get into as often as we should. So thank you for supporting today's event. Thank you for making it happen. Thank you for organizing the great speakers. Let's have a round of applause for the College of Idaho. And I gotta say, I gotta highlight the 3 student speakers that we had today. I think back to when I was a sophomore, junior in college, I never could have addressed a group like this. Not just a group of 200 people, but to perform a poem that you wrote, to give a speech that you wrote on such a personal and important topic that frankly, for some reason, is controversial still, takes a lot of courage. And so I want to thank our 3 students, Zoe, Bezawit, and Camille. And we're always looking for good trial lawyers at our office, so if you ever want to think about law school, give us a call. Thank you to our law enforcement partners, Ben Mosley with Campus Security here, Chief Ingram and his team, Canyon County Sheriff's Office also participated in our operations today, so we're really grateful to have the support of the community as reflected in our law enforcement officials. You know, today's been, in my mind, a great success. You know, I always wonder how these things will go when you get a group of diverse people together to talk about topics which are very personal to each individual in different ways. But I hope in addition to the content that we provided and the information to give you the tools you need to report to us and to the FBI and to your law enforcement incidents that occur in your community, I hope that what you leave here with today is broader than that, and that you feel connected to law enforcement, Part A, and to the resources that we have, and we will use our resources on these types of issues. But I also hope that you're connected to each other, right? As LaTanya said, this is a very diverse group, and we have different notions of what it means to be from Caldwell, or to be from the Hispanic community, to be from the Jewish community, to be from the Christian community. But at its core, justice and the values we share as Americans are about going beyond those boxes, going beyond those identities, and agreeing to agree on one thing, which is that all of us, each of us, should be able to enjoy our personal lives, our family lives, our business lives, without oppression from either the government or from our fellow citizens. So I hope that today's event inspires reflection and future conversations about how, as a community, we can stand up not only to unlawful hate, but to those seeds that get planted and that grow in a way that leads to hate and that can lead to violence. And as a representative of the Department of Justice, I found a statement from Dr. King the other day that I hadn't heard before, and I want to read it to you, and I want you to know that I think it defines what my mission is as U.S. Attorney. What Dr. King wrote is, "Justice at its best is love correcting everything that stands against love." So I thank you each for coming today, taking this time, your attention to our speakers, and again, thank you to the College of Idaho and the Wassman Center. And I'll be out in the lobby if anyone wants to say hi. Thank you all so much.